Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the Critical Twits Gaming Podcast, where today we'll be bringing you the latest and greatest in board gaming news. Hello and welcome to the 53rd Critical Twits Gaming Podcast. We are officially over a year old. Hooray!
Yay!
It doesn't sound so good when only two people do it.
We'll get them to record something later and put it over the top.
Yes. Oh, we'll just put we'll just insert some crowd noise.
Oh, crowd cheer, yeah. Good idea.
Yeah, we'll put one of those in right about now. Thank you, future me. Yes, welcome to our edition of Board Talk, bringing you the latest and greatest in board gaming news for the month of November 2016, although it's right at the end of November. And most of what we're talking about won't happen until December. But, you know, time is difficult on podcasts. It confuses me. What we're going to be talking about today is we're going to do a preview for the upcoming Dragonmeet convention. Is it a convention?
I think it's a convention, yeah.
Yeah, Dragonmeet Convention. We'll tell you all about it. It's great. We've been for the last 2 years. We're really looking forward to it. We'll be touching on some upcoming new releases and have a little bit of a chat about what we have been playing. We'll be talking about some madness from Games Workshop as they realise they actually have a back catalogue of games that people want to pay money for. Which is very not like them. We'll talk about some upcoming releases from AEG and a couple games from Kickstarter, including Tales from the Loop and Kingdom Death. I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm Brian Ennis.
And I'm Jamie Myland.
And the others are conspicuous in their absence. The reason for that being, I would like to make a quick apology. This doesn't happen very often. So, you know, remember this well. But we are very sorry. We did record a podcast for last week and it died.
Yes, we had some technical glitches.
We will be re-recording that, won't we, Jamie?
We will. We're going to be having a Netrunner special coming up soon, recapping our adventures at the recent Netrunner charity tournament. But we're going to have to actually look at re-recording some of that.
Yes, yeah. Damn you technical goblins and all of your shenanigans, which I really want to talk about my Netrunner tournament experience because it's my first tournament.
Yes, absolutely. And it's my first big tournament. I've played in small store tournaments before, but yeah, I'm looking forward to talking more about it.
Yes, and we should hopefully, fingers crossed, have an interview with Richard Hammond, not the one that sells milk on the telly, but the Richard Hammond, member of the Netrunner community who ran the charity gift tournament.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we can book him in again. Sorry, Richard, or for not getting things sorted the first time. But let's pretend that never happened.
Yes.
And move swiftly on. Dragonmeet.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say I'm looking forward to Dragonmeet. I've not actually been myself before, so this is going to be brand new for me.
Yeah, we've gone for the last 2 years. I say we, meaning myself and the other Critical Twits. We actually recorded an episode last year all about Dragonmeet, which somewhat erroneously isn't 52 episodes ago. Or 51 if you take it a week forward, even though it's on the same weekend.
Yeah, we've had some double episodes and things since then.
Yeah, we're not really very good at numbering things. So if you want to listen back to that and hear me, Aaron and Colin talking about Dragonmeet and how we met the dragon at Dragonmeet, have a listen. I'll put a link up somewhere to episode 8. We sound
awesome.
so young.
And Colin was still alive.
Yes.
Yes.
Minute silence for Colin. Cool, I've edited it out. It was boring.
Yep. So can you tell me about Dragonmeet? I mean, I've not been to one before. I've been to a couple of conventions for things, but I'd like to know more.
Yeah, Dragonmeet is a board gaming, tabletop gaming convention held every year in London around about this time of year. It's recently moved to Hammersmith. It used to be held somewhere slightly different that escapes me right this moment, but it's grown too big.
Okay.
Which is great. It shows the growth of the tabletop board gaming hobbies, etc., etc. It's run by Modiphius. Modiphius, as I said, quite a while ago now, when we reviewed GenLab Alpha. fast becoming one of my favourite tabletop gaming companies, especially for their role-playing game products. But they also do board games as well. They're very good. I've had an amazing time the last 2 times I've gone. They were the very first gaming convention I ever went to, actually, which is significant for me because I'm not a people person, and these things scare me slightly. And I had a great time and wanted to go back, and then branched out to the UK Games Expo, etc., etc. It's an incredibly slick event, very professionally run, and it is full of games to play. You can book in and play role-playing games. You can get demo games of all sorts of different things while you're there. They have an enormous bring and buy, to which we lose one member of the gaming group every year. He just gets lost amongst the second-hand things, and then emerges 6 hours later, festooned with plastic bags and with an old copy of Blood Bowl strapped to the side of his head. There's a huge trade hall, which promises to be even bigger this year. There is a charity auction, which takes place at the end of the event. Last year raised about £2,000, I think.
Wow.
Which is great. I really like stuff like that that's about more than just selling a bunch of games. And it just promises to be very big, very shiny, and very, very fun. We're hoping to grab some interviews with some game developers and publishers and all sorts of people while we're there.
I'm looking forward to it.
And hopefully we'll do a follow-up podcast as soon as we are physically able and recovered enough to talk about it. Now, this month's big news for us as big fans of Netrunner has been the announcement of Terminal Directive, which is a legacy-style 2-player campaign add-on for the base Netrunner game. Cool, that was a load of technical jargon all in one sentence that I think I handled quite well. What that means is that you buy Terminal Directive when it comes out early next year, and you'll play a series of games against an opponent that tells a story revolving around a murder, I think.
It is, yeah. It's going really back to its noir roots.
Yes, I know the original Android board game was centred around a murder, so it's quite interesting to see that sort of coming back. But it does have, as you say, those very strong noir roots. And reaction has been mixed amongst the critical twits about this kind of add-on. I think we're going to save that for our big Netrunner special next time we talk.
Yeah, we'll talk more about it definitely next time. You can read my thoughts about it on the website, criticaltwits.com.
Yes,
but we'll have a proper discussion about where each of us are coming from with this. But personally, I'm quite excited for it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what it's like.
Yes, I am cautiously optimistic. An emphasis on the cautiously. But as Jamie said, I'll pop a link below. Have a click on there if you're interested in reading our very first thoughts. We'll have developed them. We'll have had a time to let it settle down and to consider it in more depth.
And I think we've learned some new things about it since that initial preview, so that'll be good.
So, moving on to the wider world of board games. About 17 episodes ago, I didn't just check, we talked quite a lot in depth in what we call the pre-Jamie era of Critical Twits. It was a dark time. It was a much less organised time. We talked quite a lot about Games Workshop and how they were squatting like a sleeping dragon on a nest of treasure of buried intellectual property and unexploited previous game systems, and just kind of letting them go to waste. Since that time, they have split up with Fantasy Flight, who are handling a lot of their board games, and they now seem to be releasing their old, what they called specialist games again. This month has it just come out?
It's just come out, yeah.
It's just come out. The release of Blood Bowl in a brand new edition, and in a week's time, a reprint of Space Hulk 5th edition, I think it was, maybe 4th edition. But the latest edition of Space Hulk from 2014 is being re-released as well. Both of these conveniently just in time for Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. My question to you, Brian, is do you think anybody over in the Games Workshop headquarters in Nottingham actually listened to the Critical Twits? Because it seems very prescient.
Yes, I do feel like we've had our very first instance of predicting the future and telling them what they should do. Maybe it was. I would assume it was already on the cards.
Yeah, I assume it was already on the. Yeah.
But if you are secretly listening from Games Workshop HQ, let us know below. Use the code name Tiberius just to let us know who you really are. That's fine. That's a secret, isn't it? No one.
Yeah, nobody else will know.
Yeah, that's fine. Have you had a chance to have a look at Blood Bowl, or have you played much of it before, Jamie?
I've got Blood Bowl, I think, 2nd edition, which I've played once or twice when I was younger. I had it when I was younger, and then it went away. It got lost somewhere along the line. Then I managed to pick up another copy at a car boot sale a couple of years ago. And everything's still unpainted and almost brand new, so it's really nice. So at some point, I actually keep me in to sit down and repaint all the models. It comes with both some plastic ones and some original lead ones, so that's kind of cool.
You're not going to keel over in a sort of Victorian chimney sweep fashion and just die after painting your models?
I might well do.
It's one way to go.
Yeah, so there's that, and obviously I've played the PC version a lot. I do really, I'm a big fan of the computer grain version of Blood Bowl.
Yeah, Joe and I played quite a bit of it on Twitch not too long ago, and then did nothing with the footage and didn't release it on YouTube. Should probably
might have to do something about that. Yeah.
Again, it was from the pre-Jamie era of the Critical Twits, where we were just like headless chickens, really.
You're definitely productive, just maybe not so focused.
Yes, yeah. I likened it to trying to herd cats with a water pistol. They're very enthusiastic, and they're quite nice to stroke. Actually, the other twits, but they're not the most focused.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. But I've had them curl up on my lap before, and it's an experience. But
they are very warm.
Yeah,
especially Colin. You wouldn't think of it, but he burns like a tiny oven.
No, he really does.
It's a shame he's dead. Okay, back to Blood Bowl then.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to get my hands on a copy yet. But I do know our friends at the Double Skulls podcast, hello, have actually got their hands on a preview copy before it was released, and did quite an in-depth rundown of what's in there. The Double Skulls are a UK-based podcast that talks about the sort of the tournament scene of Blood Bowl, and they are very well worth a look or a listen, I suppose, as long as you are an adult.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a child, they will say things that will make you sad. They will say things that will make you question life.
They'll say things that makes the kids happy, but they'll make the parents very, very sad.
Yes, yeah. So if that happens, you didn't hear about them from us. But they are very good. They really, really know their Blood Bowl. And I can't think of many games that have survived, 13 years since an official release of the game, and had this scene still going, and people making not second-hand, but
yeah, their own custom,
second-party custom teams, custom rules, keeping the game alive through a time when it had been pretty much abandoned by Games Workshop. It's really, really impressive. And I think that sleeping dragon that is Games Workshop has really woken up and gone, oh shit, we've got a load of money we could be making here.
It's about
let's do
time.
something about it.
Speaking of which, it's for those that don't know, it's going to be £65 Blood Bowl currently.
Yes, and this is where I start to put on my usual grumpier hat. It's £80 if you include the Death Zone add-on rulebook.
Oh, okay.
Now, what they've done is they've taken the Blood Bowl rules as is, and as far as I can tell, they haven't really changed much. It's still the same game, which disappoints me slightly. I mean, I know when you're talking about something with that nostalgia and that backing, you don't want to reinvent the spiky football, but you do want to, in my eyes, modernise it slightly.
Yeah.
And I think I need to take a closer look, but I think maybe they've missed a chance slightly. What they've done, though, is they've divided up. They've got the basic rules in the book, and then all the rules for running campaigns and leagues and having star players and adding in all the extra teams that have come along since it was sort of first made were put into this sort of £15 book. It's a £15 book, and it's a 48-page softback.
Yeah.
Which feels a little bit like being bent over and violated with said spiky football, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the new release, it is literally just a reprint in a way of one of the old versions.
Yes.
And they've gone that way as well with, like you say, the Death Zone side of things, where that in itself used to be a separate standalone item. So rather than what probably would have been nice would be to combine it all together in one kind of deluxe release. They've kept them as they used to be.
It's interesting though that, I mean, first of all, the new models are nice. I do like the new models.
Definitely.
Again, coming from someone who now plays a lot of Malifaux, I would have liked it if, for instance, each orc linesman was slightly different, rather than having like 3 patterns and 3 of each, or whatever it is that you get, and like the same thrower twice or and such like. But I can kind of understand that.
I can. One of my biggest problems with the classic kind of tabletop Blood Bowl, and this might, you might overcome this by playing it lots, but was always knowing exactly which kind of abilities each of your minis had. So if one had like block or tackle or things like that, or any of the more advanced ones you can add on as if you do a campaign. When you're playing on the computer game version, you can easily hover over the minis and see what they do. But you're constantly referring to like a spreadsheet of that one's that number, so that one has block and tackle, and so it does this.
I suppose it's easier to go, that's a linesman, because they're wearing a uniform, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
I mean, I've played quite a lot of Guild Ball. I love Guild Ball, but that's because I'm more of a soccer fan. For you Americans out there, you're wrong. Than I am an American football or rugby kind of fan. They have much smaller teams, and every model is individual, and you just basically you'll paint them with the same colour clothes on and hope they look kind of coherent. There's no kind of uniform. Whereas the Blood Bowl minis, they're wearing a kit, aren't they? They're wearing those sorts of things. So I suppose actually maybe limiting the models makes it easier in the long run, but it doesn't look as cool.
Yeah, I think it makes it easier to, like I say, to tell who's a linesman or whatever, but at the same time, I think if every one of them maybe had the same kind of outfit, but you've got ones that are even in the same pose, identical poses, which, it could have done a bit more variety, I think. Yeah,
and I'm really not happy with them adding on an extra £15 supplement at the time of release. It's like buying a video game that ships with DLC buried on the DVD somewhere.
Yeah, you see,
come on, you're releasing the game. Put that book in the box.
I know.
Stop being cheapskate.
I think I understand it, because if you looked, actually, you made me think of it that way. With DLC, I'm actually quite forgiving, because at the end of the day, the way that these companies work is they'll have a budget. They'll have a budget to produce something, and they'll use that budget the best they can. It may alongside that be another team that gets another smaller budget to produce some DLC, for a computer game. So they actually have their own budget and their own targets to meet, so therefore it may ship at the same time as the full game on release, but it has its own kind of money to make up, its own budget. So this may well be the case with Games Workshop, but at the same time, the majority of the rules and those type of things are already pre-existing. So it's not like they obviously had a team work on it, refresh it, and editors go through everything, and new models made and everything. But it's not quite the same as building something new from scratch, like you would do if you were developing a computer game. Yeah.
Is this tempting you to dig out your old version of Blood Bowl, stroke update it with something?
Absolutely. Well, I actually brought my games cabinet back into my lounge the other day. So it's been sat there looking at me, going, "Play me!" All these different games that are sat in my pile of shame. And I finally got around. We'll talk about later, to playing Castles of Burgundy, which is one that I've been wanting to get around to for a while. And Blood Bowl is also sat there saying, "Take me out and play with me." So maybe actually sometime when I have the Twits over, we could have a game.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm interested. The board is bigger than it was. The models are shinier and new. And Blood Bowl is quite a good game. There's a few things about it that annoy me, like when you forget to move your turn marker. But then again, you kind of have to move your turn marker because it's got a set time limit.
a lot of that is down to like tournament rules, and I think when you're playing like casually, that's a lot less strict unless you're playing with a douchebag.
And I think one of the things that separating out these extra rules has done is things like that are now sort of optional. When I was looking through, those sorts of things were included in the optional rules. So there's kind of like a nice way of getting people into it with some simplified rules as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So it does look interesting. I do think it's interesting as well. Guild Ball have just very recently released their plastic starter set with 2 teams and a pitch and all sorts of stuff in there as well. And it's, you're spoilt for medieval men playing with balls at the moment. So it's quite interesting. I think it'd be quite nice, budget dependent, whether we could maybe do a comparison of the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
At some point.
I'm wondering if you could take Guild Ball models and turn them and actually use Blood Bowl rules with them and so on. I'm sure you could, but you could actually do kind of a mashup, which would be quite nice.
Yeah, it would be cool. So I think well done Games Workshop for remembering that you don't just sell Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 and Lord of the Rings if you can be bothered. You've actually got all these extra games kicking about, which brings us nicely onto Space Hulk.
Yes.
Now, they're re-releasing Space Hulk. It's not a new edition, as far as I can tell. It's a reprint of the 2014 version of Space Hulk. One that I rushed out and bought when it first came out. And opened up and licked slightly. And then did nothing with for a long time. And then sold.
Oh, I was going to say, do you still have it? Because I'll happily play that.
So I didn't sell it. I didn't ever play it, so I got rid of it. Just in with a job lot of other things. I like Space Hulk. It came out originally just before I got into Games Workshop stuff. So it was one of those things that had a kind of mystique to me when I was younger. I had seen sort of the tail end of it being played in the shop when I used to go in. It's a very tiny customer, like a tiny hobbit child, eyes full of wonder, pockets full of litmus bread. But I didn't actually pick it up until a couple of years ago. And then just there was no real interest in playing it from anybody. And it just sat in a box. It's a very nice box. Not the cardboard, but the stuff inside is very, very nice.
Yeah, I think it always was, really. It's a lovely little system and a nice little game. Again, there's quite a nice PC adaptation of that as well. There's the classic one from the 90s, but there's a more recent, obviously, version on Steam, which also plays very well.
There is a new version of the computer game coming out at the same time.
Ah, nice.
Space Hulk Deathwing.
Oh, yes, I've heard of this.
Which is amazing, because Games Workshop have gone from this lumbering behemoth that arse has never seen the elbow, let alone communicated with it to let it know what it was doing, to we've got the board game releasing on the 3rd of December, and we've got the new PC game launching on the 9th of December, with consoles following early in the new year. It's coordinated.
Yeah, it really is.
You buy the PC game.
And quite responsive.
You buy the PC game and you go, oh, this is based on a board game. Oh, we might play that. You buy the board game, can't get anyone to play with because you're sad and lonely like I am, and go, I'll buy the PC game instead. It's quite... I mean, I don't want to oversell this, because to me it's very basic and simple brand synergy, as marketing bods would call it, but it's not very Games Workshop.
No, it's nice. It's quite refreshing to see them, pulling these things out. Speaking of which, actually, I don't know if you ever saw. very similar game to Space Hulk was Space Crusade.
The precursor. Yeah,
that to me, that was when I was younger. That was the one that some of my friends had, and I really wanted at the time and couldn't afford it. And I always really wanted to get into that, which is why when I see copies of Space Hulk around now, I'm like, I really would like to give it a proper go.
Yes. Just to go back to Blood Bowl quickly, I've just had an exclusive communication from the Double Skulls podcast, saying that there are a few changes to the rules Nothing major, but little tweaks. So actually, sounds quite good. From what he's said, a few little rules, nothing with a big impact, but probably, hopefully, things just to
balance.
simplify.
So
that's made me feel slightly more keen, actually.
Yeah, and it's quite nice.
I get sometimes when people reprint things and they just reprint it or redo it exactly as it was. It's like, well, I could have just got the old thing.
Yeah,
Why have you done this? Whereas taking that opportunity to make something better shows a bit of love and care.
It does. I think I quite like the idea as well, because I still have, one of the classic versions of the game. If it would be possible ever to just pick up the rule book and start getting some of the new minis as they come out. So rather than getting the new core set, just to see how easy it would be to expand upon, an existing set. I don't know. It likely is. I mean, I don't know. I doubt Games Workshop would at this point release a standalone rulebook for it, but it would just be a nice thing to see, because if anybody did have one of the classic sets and wanted just to bring it up to date, people would probably even pay a slight premium for that.
Yeah, definitely. I remember the early 2000s. Let's have specialist games. Let's have a little magazine for specialist games. Kind of attempt to keep them alive. That. Was really Games Workshop's last big swing at that back product of all those little add-on skirmishy type games. Just again, I might chop this up when I edit, but to return to the topic of Space Hulk. Space Hulk is one of those games that always looked more fun than it actually was to play. There's things you can do with Space Hulk involving like egg timers for your turn and things like that I don't particularly like. I think it pushes it into a more competitive place than it needs to be in. But you could just not use that and it's cool.
Yes.
The models are really, really nice. Games Workshop do still make very nice models.
Yes.
As much as I have my differences with them.
I mean, obviously, they attract a lot of talent when it comes to sculptors and things like that. I think one area that probably Games Workshop is maybe getting slightly dated in now is the fact that most of their things are still casted, whereas a lot of people obviously move to 3D prints, which can actually bring out more detail. And then, unless you go for really high quality cast material.
I do like, we're just bouncing around between the two things, but I do like the fact that they've also released at launch the Skaven Blight Scramblers, so a new plastic Skaven team, and it looks like they're actually going to support Blood Bowl. This is the thing with Space Hulk, is that the previous 2 times they've released Space Hulk, they've kind of gone, do you remember this from when you were a kid? And thrown you a box of Space Hulk with a book of missions and some nice models and some lovely cardboard tokens for you to flick at the eyes of your opponents. And then they've just kind of forgotten about it. When they've done things like Dreadfleet, for instance, again, it was just a box, throw it out there near Christmas, spend some money on it, it's a game, you're done. What they look to be doing with Blood Bowl is supporting it and continuing to sort of grow it as a property, as something that you get into. And that's very much a twist on their part. And it's the kind of thing that might actually make me go into the Games Workshop more than just when I've run out of ink and I'm desperate.
Yeah, I think you said earlier about the fact that Blood Bowl does have this long-standing community that has been crying out for something like this for a long time. So, and they've gone out of their way to build their own teams from random miniatures, like non-Games Workshop ones. So I think... they'd be missing a trick if they didn't go, carry on supporting this a bit further than they do with some of the other IPs.
And one of the things that has been talked about coming from this new specialist game arm of the company is expansions for Space Hulk.
Oh, okay.
So things to add on to Space Hulk.
That's neat.
They kind of did it. They did you could download an app and it'd give you a different mission, but you were using the same models in the same formation. Or you might go and buy like a Terminator Chaplain and add it in. But it wasn't anything big. Whereas it seems like they're considering expansions, which is really, really nice.
It seems like a game that could be very modular. I mean, I've got some of the D&D board games that are all like tile based, and you can expand the tiles in any kind of format you want. And I could see you can have all sorts of different sort of expanded tile sections for a game like Space Hulk.
Yes, yeah, I think you could. There's lots of things you could do. You could bring in Space Marines of different chapters. Mm-hmm. You could bring in different threats beyond just the Gene Stealers.
Yep.
And you could do all sorts of things with different types of ship. Mm-hmm. Or even different locations entirely, rather than a Space Hulk, a base at the bottom of the sea, for instance. And you could do all sorts of different things with that and have a different feel to it, and have water hazards, a bit Bioshock.
You're right, it does have a lot of potential.
If they are listening and they want to steal that, please credit me.
One of my favourite Games Workshop games, actually, computer games, was... oh god, I should have thought about it before I said it. It was a tactical turn-based XCOM style game back in the late 90s.
We've done this before.
Yeah. What was it called?
Chaos Gate?
That's the one.
This is exactly what happened last time.
Yep.
Only you were Colin and I was even slower.
Okay. Yeah, so Chaos Gate, that was one of my favourite PC games of the late 90s. And it kind of an XCOM style. You have a small squad of Space Marines rather than the larger squads like you would in the newer 40k games. And I could totally see that, actually, if you take the kind of Space Hulk rules and then expanded them so you could go outside of a Space Hulk, you could actually do some really neat things with it.
Yes, yeah. It's interesting because this is the first we're seeing, just to sort of round this section off, the first we're seeing of Games Workshop bringing back the specialist game. Which was something they announced roughly a year ago. We've got Blood Bowl, we've got Space Hulk. Those are fairly simple. Space Hulk is Space Hulk. It doesn't need to change a lot, really. Blood Bowl has a community. It has people playing it still. So, you update things a little bit. You sell it to them. They get excited. That spreads the word. You've got a built-in fan base and sort of guaranteed sales, I suppose.
Yeah.
What will be interesting is what they pick to do next. What are they going to do? Because we've got all sorts of things that could come under that specialist game thing. We've got Mordheim, we've got Necromunda, we've got Battlefleet Gothic.
So I think part of this could come down to the online, the gaming side of things, the computer game side of things, where obviously the games like Space Hulk and Blood Bowl have both been very successful in recent years on Steam, on PC and other gaming systems. So, and you've got games like Mordheim now available also on a PC release. So maybe we'll actually start to see, like say, almost a brand synergy where they're looking at, okay, this game has been popular in a digital realm, so it's like bringing it back to the tabletop as opposed to back like it was in the 80s and 90s, where it was a popular tabletop game first, which then spawned computer game versions.
Yeah, they have kind of scattered out a whole bunch of stuff. So maybe they're looking at what's popular there to feed back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I mean, it could be quite interesting to see what comes along. I mean, they've got Manor War, which became Dreadfleet. They have re-released Warhammer Quest as well, haven't they? Which we've completely forgotten about.
Okay. To be honest, again, I'm really out of the Games Workshop loop at the minute, so did not know.
They did a version of that. I bought it and then again sold it, which this episode makes it sound like that happens all the time. Actually, it's quite a rare occurrence. But I bought it. It's Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. It's updated for the new Age of Sigmar era. So they've updated it. They've changed the rules very, very much. It reminds me slightly of Dead of Winter in that you roll a bunch of dice for your actions and then you spend them based on the numbers that you've rolled.
Oh, that's interesting.
So to walk over there is quite a low number, whereas to chop its head off is a harder number. And it looks very, very interesting, but a friend of mine wanted it and I kind of overspent that month, so I sold it on.
Okay.
Because I opened it up and it was a huge box full of unassembled plastic, which in the old days, the old Brian would have been, fairly excited about. Dare I say, fairly rigid, whereas I was very floppy at the sight of that, because it just looked like a lot of work.
Yeah.
And being more of a board gamer these days, I'm used to opening up a box, reading a rule book and playing a game. Maybe popping out some cardboard tags or clipping some arms on. And these were fairly detailed models.
Yeah.
They looked nice, but I didn't have the time. And then when
totally.
you store them,
I get that totally. I mean, I still love that aspect of the hobby, but finding the time these days is very, very difficult.
Yeah, I can just see 7, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18 unassembled Malifaux miniatures still in boxes on my desk right as we talk. And I love my Malifaux. So putting together 30 odd models just to play a board game that I'm not sure if it's going to be any good is tricky. I'd love to see what they could do with Inquisitor. Inquisitor was always like the bastard child, because Games Workshop generally sticks to this 28mm scale. Yes, you've got maybe the smaller scale Epic and Warmaster, Battlefleet Gothic, Aeronautica Imperialis, which is all, it's based around like big units and very small models or like big ships. But Inquisitor went the other way and went for the 54mm scale.
Yeah.
And the models were absolutely stunning.
Oh, they were lovely.
For the time. Obviously needed, more paper clips than the local tax office. I don't know. Somewhere that needs a lot of paper clips to hold all the models together.
Yeah.
Local branch is Staples, but then they'd use Staples. But they were very, very nice. And I think that, especially with, like you were saying, 3D modelling and maybe the new resins or new plastics, they could come up with some beautiful, bigger models.
They really could.
Or they could just repurpose the rule set and actually just have it in a size that you could just use all your models from elsewhere in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did love Inquisitor when it first came out, and I collected, I think, about 5 of the models. But again, it was quite prohibitively expensive at the time.
It was what, £20 to £30 for a model?
I think some of the larger models were more than that. The Space Marines,
we're talking,
and so on.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what they do with it. It was always an odd one because it was kind of like Games Workshop wanted to do Dark Heresy, the role-play game, but also wanted to flog you some models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had definitely had some role-play elements in there. It was still quite light. It was more of the idea was that I think you played a battle and then you wrote up the campaign story afterwards that sort of told the story of what happened. Yeah. But I could definitely see them. I'd love to see more of the role-play element coming to the front, and I could see them doing some really interesting things with it. Yeah,
because all of the 40k role-play stuff is Fantasy Flight, isn't it?
It is, so which is going away.
That's going to go away early next year. So could we see your Games Workshop store turned from this place where you buy 40k and Warhammer Fantasy Battle, or Age of Sigmar, whatever you want to call it now, and turn into a place where you go for, yes, your war games, but also your board games, your skirmish games, and your role-play games?
I would love that. I mean, it would get it back to, more of a hobby store that it used to be. But the question is, will they put the effort in at the kind of street level now? Or are they dedicating themselves to online sales, or,
Yeah,
because
it's interesting.
Every time you go to a Games Workshop store, it's just so quiet, and they don't seem to have like the will to put any kind of effort in to supporting them like they used to.
We shall leave that for posterity. We'll check back in 6 months' time and see how many of our suggestions they've implemented, just like last time. Cool. Moving on then, there are a couple games from AEG, a couple board games that you wanted to talk to me about, Jamie.
Yeah, okay. So there's one that's been out for a little while, but I only found out about it recently. And I think it's quite an interesting idea. It's by Jason Tagmeyer, published by AEG, and it's called Pretense. The idea behind Pretense is that it's a meta game. It's a game that you play alongside playing other games.
Okay.
So it's designed for a board game evening or board game day where you're getting together with a group of friends and you're going to maybe plough through a collection of different games, that you've been meaning to get around to, which is something that we've all been meaning to do for a while. And every player randomly selects a role that they're going to take on during the time they're playing. So these roles give you an action that then if somebody else in the group performs that action during the day, you get to call them out on it, reveal your role, and steal their role from them. Okay, so for example, there's lots of different roles. So for example, there's the bookworm. So if another player hands you a rule book, you may take their role card. So you need to try to position yourself during the day to actually be able to have somebody pass you a rule book.
Cool.
Or the teacher. So if you teach the group to play a new game, you may take any other player's role card. So you get to pick. Or if another player gives you a high five, that's the frat boy, you may take their role card, and so on. So you have all these different kind of roles, and it just adds a little bit of extra flavour to the day. And it's kind of a little bit of kind of bluffing or trying to get the other players to do things that, will let you win.
Cool. I really like the sound. I'm actually browsing the Kickstarter now. I mean, it kickstarted quite a while ago, so is AEG released this following a successful Kickstarter?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. You can get it imported for about £10. It's on sale now on the American Amazon store, but unfortunately that's not on for us. But yeah, it does look like just a nice little extra thing, especially if you are running any sort of board game parties or you have a group that gets together regularly, like if you have a your weekly board game group. Could be a nice little thing to throw in. Apparently it works best for around 6 to 8 players, so it gives you an idea of the sort of thing it was suitable for. If someone takes your card, do you still get to play? No, that's the thing. Is it technically it's got some knockout features, so there are some definite downsides to it, and I could definitely think it needs to be played a couple of times to see how well it works. I could totally see. Depending on how many cards there come with the game, that maybe if you get knocked out, you could then take another card. Because at the end of the day, the person who ends up with the most cards wins. So there's nothing wrong with you then assuming another role should you, lose the one.
I think if you did that would be my only concern. Yeah. Just bear with me. I'm just going to add that to my Amazon basket and buy it. Oh, you sold me on that completely.
Cool. Right, so we'll test that out maybe over this Christmas period where we get together and play some games. Yeah, so we will be talking about that as we play some games. One of the things I like the look of with it is that it can be played in quite a large group, sort of 12 people or so. What's quite interesting is that the board gaming scene, if you like, has exploded in Peterborough. We've got the Den Gaming Cafe, and we have... You've got Posh Games,
and we also have the local pub, the Stoneworks. I say local, it's in the town centre, but I'm quite close to the town centre, who host the Den on a monthly basis. And I think that would be a great thing to take along to something like that.
That would be great for one of those evenings,
because you're always playing a game and you could dish them out and you wouldn't maybe know who was playing and who wasn't, who might steal your card, who might not. So... I'm going to take that along next time we go to one of those events.
Awesome. That would really suit that.
Yeah. Excellent. What was the other game?
Right, the other one's just been announced this week. Again, it's by AEG, and it's called Light and Dark. So it's quite a light game, and it reminds me a lot of a game we played at actually the Den Board Game Cafe, Push It.
Okay.
So you remember Push It, where you kind of have to flick your kind of disc across the table, and it's a little bit like bowls or something like that, where you need to get one puck close to another.
Yes, yeah.
So that was that kind of game.
I love those kind of games. Aaron and I have discussed heading to Canada for the Crokinole World Championships at some point.
That would be awesome. Yep, that sort of thing. So it's in that type of vein, but it adds a bit more theme to it. So in Light and Dark, it's 2-player, and each are sort of shepherding a group of druids. Okay, either two turn to the light or dark side. This could totally be rethemed with Star Wars, but anyway. So you've got the light side druids and the dark side druids. Now, so the light side player is trying to convert all of the dark side ones to the light and vice versa. Additionally, you have these torches which are either lit or unlit. So the dark side player is trying to turn all the torches out and turn all of the light side druids to his side.
Okay.
And to do that, you simply line up your druids on either side of the table, and you have to take it in turns to flick your druid discs across the table to convert the opponent's druids. So if one then hits an opponent, you can then flip that to your colour or your side.
Okay.
Same thing with the torches. Yeah, you can light or extinguish them. The thing that makes it extra interesting, though, beyond the standards of a game like Push It, is that there's 8 cards that come with the game that have special abilities on them. So you can then play these cards should certain things happen during the game. So, for example, if you flick your dark side druid into a light side druid, and that light side druid flies off the table, normally they're put back onto the table on light side up, so they haven't changed. Yeah, so it counts as like not exactly a fail, but it has no effect. Yeah. But if you happen to be holding a card that says convert follower, play this card if you knock a druid out of the play area, flip the druid to your faction and place it anywhere in the play area. So you've got these cards that give you a little bit of extra strategy. And I think it actually looks like it'd be quite interesting. It seems like it'd be a very kind of light, sort of small box game.
Is it out?
No, it comes out first quarter next year. So I'll be adding that to my Amazon watch list. And
oh, they're very cute druids.
They are quite cute, aren't they?
They're sort of chibi druids.
They are. It's quite light. It's quite small. I think it would be. It's retail. Recommended retail price is $9.99. So it'll probably be about as much in pounds.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I've got a soft spot in my heart for the kind of light little games that you can just play in 10 minutes and be done, or play 3 or 4 games of in a row and swap sides and play around and do different things.
Yeah, I really do too.
And I really like flicking. We dedicated an episode to games that involve flicking.
Yep.
And we had much fun with puns, so I won't tax the listeners any more than I already have. It sounds fan-flicking-tastic.
It does.
That looks really interesting. Well done for finding that, because that would have passed me by completely. Right, moving on then.
Okay.
To Kickstarter Corner. We've got a couple things on Kickstarter. I've recently I've recently backed something on Kickstarter, which doesn't happen very often. But when I see something that is from a good company with good pedigree and looks interesting, that's kind of my criteria. I won't back something from someone for their very first ever Kickstarter generally.
Yeah,
I am a suspicious man, steeped in cynicism, and I do not trust you.
That's fair enough. I've been burned myself with that. So
yeah, badly. What burnt you, Jamie? Tell me. You're in a safe place.
It was custom dice Kickstarter, which never fulfilled. Yeah, there was all sorts of like this long epic saga of what happened to this guy and why he couldn't fulfill it. But yeah, that was the only one. The rest of them have all been very positive.
This particular Kickstarter then, the Kickstarter that I have recently backed, is a game called Tales from the Loop. Now, it's a tabletop RPG. It's from Friar Ligon, or Free League Press, as they translate to, from Sweden. I think I pronounced it correctly. Who work very closely in association with Modifius, who are the people hosting Dragonmeet. Circularity. It's almost like there's the illusion of structure. And it uses the same system as Gen Lab Alpha and Mutant Year Zero.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, which we are big fans of here on the Critical Twits Gaming Podcast, and a quick search and maybe a look below if I can be bothered will take you to where we wax lyrical about the wonders, especially sort of the survivability, the post-apocalyptic aspects of that. The system is absolutely perfect for that kind of game. What I'm really interested in with Tales from the Loop is it isn't really post-apocalyptic. It's set, as far as I can tell, because I mostly speed read the Kickstarter and they went to take my money and clicked all the buttons. It's set in a 1980s style, may even be in the 1980s, but in a very much a 1980s teen horror movie style. So things like It.
Yeah.
I'm struggling now.
Well, Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, yeah. Stranger Things is the thing that grabbed me about it. The recent, essentially, Stranger Things is every single Stephen King style movie from the 1980s distilled, with Winona Ryder looking a bit haggard, because she spent most of the thing crying. Don't want to disparage Winona Ryder. I loved her when I was a child, in a fuzzy way.
I thought she was brilliant in Stranger Things. I thought the whole cast were, but it was an excellent series.
Yes, you could say she really stole every scene she was in, couldn't you? Shoplifting puns. Not even very good shoplifting puns. Tales from the Loop is set in a very similar kind of style. It's got that young kids going on an adventure on their bikes kind of feel to it. The artwork looks amazing, and the loop itself is a experimental secret government style particle accelerator.
Oh, so yeah, okay, yeah.
Like that famous one that's the name's just forgotten me. Oh God, I can't even talk.
The Large Hadron Collider.
The Hadron Collider, yes, like a Hadron Collider, yes. And so that, in true 80s fashion, has created some kind of rift, some kind of temporal shifting, alternate dimensions. And it looks like it could be a very, very interesting game. I trust Friar Ligon and Modiphius to the point where I kind of like the idea. I think it's an unusual idea for a role-play game. I think you could have some really meta moments where you have your teenage characters playing Dungeons and Dragons inside your Tale from the Loop game, which would be quite interesting.
Yes.
And yes, I think it looks very, very interesting, and I'm really, really eager. It's currently up on Kickstarter. They've just unlocked hardback books. They funded really, really quickly, so it's definitely going ahead, and I highly recommend you take a look.
Cool.
I will do an unboxing of said game when it appears, probably. Yes, I will. Go on, I'll commit myself now.
Yeah, you should do. That'd be awesome.
Yes, and we'll do a review once we played it for a bit and tell you how good or not it is, but I'm very excited.
Yeah, I mean, actually, one thing that the setting itself probably avoids quite nicely, actually, is that one of my problems with role-playing games when they're set in the real world, especially in the sort of modern day, within the last 30 years real world, is how you treat guns.
Yes.
And obviously setting it around, kids and teenagers probably has less of a gunplay element than, say, a Special Agents kind of X-Files style game would have.
I'd be remiss if we didn't talk briefly about the game Kingdom Death. Kingdom Death was a huge success on Kickstarter. I think it's a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it made about 2 million, I believe, didn't it, on the first time round?
Yes. It's kind of like the fusion of role-play and board games that I have always wanted to play. And if someone said, you could have a game, you could make a game, and money would be no object, it would be the kind of thing that would come out of my head. And I was really, really gutted that I missed it the first time. It's the basic premise is that you play a group of survivors who are trying to build up a settlement and have to go off every season to go off and hunt and fight monsters that are threatening your survival. It's got a kind of post-apocalyptic-y survival feel to it. The models themselves are... the game itself is full of models that come on all sorts of sprues. And it has the kind of detail where if your character picks up a new suit of armor, you can rebuild that character in a different suit of armor and have a different model of them in a different suit of armor.
Yeah, I noticed that. It had almost like a Monster Hunter vibe where it has all these, like, you could take a claw from something you defeated, turn it into a sword, and then that can actually be attached to your model. Yes,
yeah. It's the kind of thing maybe where you'd build your models with magnets so you could swap bits out easier. It looks, the difficulty seems incredibly brutal. The monsters themselves are beautiful models.
They really are.
And it has this kind of legacy style ongoing game with that Monster Hunter feel, with some light role play, with the settlement building that we've really enjoyed in Mutant Year Zero, and to a lesser extent sort of Gen Lev Alpha and Conspiracy X, other role play games like that. And it has funded already.
Yeah.
It's only been up for a couple of days at the time of chatting. It's funded to the tune of $5 million. Part of the game is sort of a 1.5 edition, so it's an add-on with some different rules and some extra bits and pieces for people that have already got it. But the vast majority of people seem to be new, buying the game from scratch.
Yeah. So if you were buying into this for the first time, how much is the lowest tier on Kickstarter to be able to pick it up?
This is the tricky bit.
Because I couldn't figure it out.
It has models. And it's full of models, and I'm not talking clipped together plastic models. We're talking full on GW Malifaux wargame style sprues.
They're lovely,
with dozens of options. Beautiful, beautiful kits. There's cards coming out of cards. There are maps upon boards upon playboards, upon all sorts of different things. However, it is pricey. I'll tell you what you get. You get the core game. You get the add-on. You get all 12 current expansions. All new expansions that come from the Kickstarter. The extra pin-up models, which is the one thing about this I'm not keen on. It's pin-up versions of certain characters with their boobies out and such like. Which,
I did notice there were male pin-ups as well, though.
There are some gleaming torsos in there if that's what you're into. You've got some promo models, a t-shirt, some more bits and pieces from the last version as well. That has been backed 666 times before it timed out.
Right.
The cost for that, for everything that they do, was $1,666.
Wow. Yeah.
Which was a lot of money. It's a lot of money anywhere. Sometimes when we talk about money, we go, oh, your mileage may vary. Money is different for everyone. I think when we're talking in the region of $1,600, we're talking a lot of money for nearly everybody in the world, unless you're part of, the 1%. And then boo to you, get off my podcast. It's a lot. They have released another version of that. I think it's the same, sort of post Black Friday. That has been backed 346 times on top as well, bringing us to pretty much around 1,000 people. 1,000 people have spent $1,000 plus on this game.
That's kind of crazy. Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that it feels like if you're going all out for this crazy bastard thing, there's a little part of me that's like, I want everything. If you just want the core game, so for just the core game, you are looking at $250. Which is Kingdom Death Monster core game 1.5.
And what does that get you? Because I did notice in the original 1.0 version that the core game was 2 models. So here we go. So the box game includes obviously your rulebook, storybook, 2 foot by 3 foot game board, 1, 2, 3, 4 survivors, 5 terrain tiles, some dice, 25 cards, 100 gear cards, 10 settlement location tiles, survival record sheets, so basically player character sheets, settlement record sheets, and base inserts. And then armor miniature kits, which you can then combine to make up 2 male and 2 female miniatures.
Yes.
There's also comes with a white lion, a phoenix, a butcher, an antelope, kingsman, king's hand, one of each. So 6 monsters, 4 players, and 5 survivors.
Yes. Now they reckon that this game is going to is 30 years in game, so 30 game turns, if you like, with each turn each year lasting 1 to 3 hours of gameplay. So that's quite a hefty investment anyway. But I have this habit when I'm buying stuff. I'll commit to something, and then I'll see that there's a slightly better version, and I'll talk myself into spending the extra money. And then I'll see a slightly better version above that, and I will keep going. And I'm very, very worried that this game, if I do commit, I'll keep coming back to it, and it will swallow all of my money.
Yes, I could definitely see that. We talked about this before, but you've got to decide at what point is it a game, and which point is it a hobby. So is it something that you're going to collect and keep collecting, like you do Malifaux?
Yes, yeah. The version that looks sort of most interesting, and they've pledged to keep releasing up to 2020 with extra bits and pieces, is the Gambler's Lantern version, which is the game, the new add-on, a t-shirt, all the new expansions and all the new models that are coming out from this version. But that would require committing to a $927 pledge.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It is. Yeah.
But my God, does it look like an absolutely amazing sort of premium product.
I suppose you've got to think, if it's something you're going to commit time to and you're going to play as a group, you could even buy it as a group. So
yeah, you could chip in together.
Yeah.
As long as, like, in the 3 years that it will take you to play it, one of you doesn't move away and want to run off with half the box. It's taking the idea of a tabletop experience and making it, it's the Rolls Royce, if you like, of tabletop experiences.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that existed only in my head until very recently. And it's the kind of thing that I try not to get too drunk near the internet while the Kickstarter's going on, because I might end up committing to a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, one thing I do seem to get the impression is, though, that if you don't contribute to the Kickstarter, I don't know how long the actual game will live for in the shops, because if you look at their website, the core original box is sold out, and it seems to have been sold out for a while.
So if you like the sound of that, if you've got a lot of money to burning a hole in your back pocket, swing on over to that. I'll pop a link below. If you've got loads and loads of money burning a hole, through your very being, please feel free to buy me one as well. I won't say no. What's the use of having the power of an internet-based podcast if you're not willing to abuse it for shiny toys?
Absolutely.
Cool. So that brings us to the final part of the podcast. Pretty much bang on where I thought we'd be, actually, which is good. Where we just have a little quick chat about the games that we have been playing recently.
Okay.
So Jamie, tell me more about Castles of Burgundy. Is this where someone has frozen a whole load of red wine and then chiseled the resulting blocks into some kind of edifice for your conquering?
Would be lovely, although unfortunately as soon as it melted it would just be wine in the dirt, so probably not the best idea. But no, it's a game that currently ranks at 10th on Board Game Geek's top rated games of all time. Ooh. It sits right in between Puerto Rico and Agricola.
3 games I have never played. I've just shot myself in the foot there.
Well, Agricola is really nice. It's very traditional Euro worker placement style game.
Yes.
Puerto Rico is also a game quite similar to Castles of Burgundy, where it's about trading goods. Well, it's about trading goods, whereas Castles of Burgundy is about acquiring these goods to develop your lands. So I found it's got quite a steep learning curve for playing it the first time. I played the game with my wife at the weekend, and she did find it a little bit boring to learn the rules to, which is not always the best. It's the sort of thing that you probably want to learn first before introducing somebody to. but it seems that it's got a lot of depth to it, and it would kind of reward replay value as you sort of begin to learn all of the combos and special abilities. Especially you have these knowledge tiles, and every single one of them does something different, and you have to look up in the rulebook what it does. So you kind of don't have to know what they do ahead of time. But as you do start to get a vibe for the game and start to figure out how things work together, you could definitely start to kind of
build on extra layers of strategy and tactics and stuff.
Definitely. So basically,
that's always good. I like a game that you can play again and have a slightly different experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you're growing with the game.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing I think if you had a regular board game group that you could get this out every so often, I think you could really get a lot out of it. So basically, the idea is that you've got the central board, which is kind of like the market, and on there you've got these land kind of region tiles that you can kind of purchase to expand your own region around your castle, and you have your own separate kind of board. Each player has their own one, which you can then has all these little hex things on. It looks like a mini version of Catan that you can build up your region around your castle. So that could be water tiles with ships on. It could be farm tiles with animals on, and so on.
Okay.
You also have these other kind of resource tiles that could be things like. I don't know off the top of my head, but things like grain or things like, things you could buy and sell at market.
Yeah.
You can't, though, just go out and directly purchase one of those resource tiles. You have to, first of all, acquire a ship, I believe it is. Acquire a ship that then lets you take those resource tiles from the market and then place them into your storage. Then you can later spend an action to sell them on. So basically, each turn, each player simultaneously rolls 2 dice, and the starting player also rolls an extra white dice, which determines where one of the kind of resources goes onto the board.
Okay.
And then you have those 2 dice to spend as your actions. So if you rolled a 4, you could either take a location tile from the area marked number 4.
Okay.
Or you could then spend that 4 to do other things, such as if you've already got a resource tile on your board, in waiting away in your storage area, you could then place that onto an area of your territory marked with a number 4. Okay. So it's kind of, you can strategically choose what you're going to do with your actions depending on what you rolled. You could also, if you rolled a 4 and you had something in your goods storage area, which is also labelled with the number 4, you could then sell those items. So you've got all these different things that you could do, and it gives you lots of options each turn. And it's kind of weighing up which is the best one right now to kind of pay off in the long run. So you might get things that get you instant victory points, and you've got a little track around the outside of the board to move your kind of counter as to sort of see how well you're doing. Or you could get things that will pay off at the end of the game, a little bit like you do in Lords of Waterdeep.
Yes.
Yeah. So... it's like I say, it's got a lot of depth, but I think it's this type of thing that, again, you would have to play 2 or 3 times to really get your head around.
But it's good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Again, I don't think Alison was so keen, but again, it's something that maybe, if once it's been played a couple of times, it would probably start to click a little bit more.
Do you think it would be better with more players, or is it just 2 players?
Board Game Geek suggests that 2-player is the best setup for it. It supports 2 to 4.
Okay.
I'd imagine it would work just as well with 3 and 4 players, but it probably just take a bit longer to get to your turn and things like that. When you play with more players, though, you do get more options on the board because there's, again, resource tiles, for example, or land tiles as they go out, go on the number 2s for 2-player, but also go on the number 3s for 3-player and so on.
Okay.
So it gives you a wider selection.
I'm going to have to twist your arm and force you to bring that along next time we have a board game day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely do that, and I'll teach it to
along
all
with
of you guys.
Copy of Pretense that I've just ordered.
Awesome. Well, actually, one other thing I thought was quite a neat mechanic in that game as well was the fact that you have these worker tokens. So on your turn, you could spend one of your dice to take a worker token, or if you buy a certain type of building, then that will also give you 4 worker tokens with it. So that type of thing. And a worker token can be spent to adjust your dice roll up or down by 1.
Okay.
And that also includes rolling around from 6 to 1 and 1 to 6.
Yeah. I was thinking, actually, when you were describing it, it sounded like it could be slightly down to luck. You know, I need to roll a 6 to buy the thing that I need to buy. So
yes, so it gives you that little bit of control.
Yeah, games that let you control the luck or legislate for luck or manipulate randomness in your favour to a certain degree. I like that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, late game in the game we played at the weekend, we got right near the end, and I just needed a 5 to be able to place something on my board. So I actually spent a turn gaining workers, so I could then guarantee that I could adjust my dice roll to that value. Yeah,
sounds good. Just to finish us off, you weren't there when we played the rather wonderful Fury of Dracula.
No, I wish I had been.
Fury of Dracula is a game I've been interested in for a long time. It's been out of print for quite a while, and it came back in the summer when we talked about Fantasy Flight and Games Workshop having a lover's tiff and separating. Fury of Dracula is one of the children that has been left bereft by this divorce. So if you're interested in it, please pick it up fairly soon before it goes out of production. It's going to go out of print, and I don't know, because it's originally a Games Workshop game from the 80s, but it's got nothing to do with their traditional IPs. It is set in the Victorian time, during Dracula, if you like, and much like the actual original novel, Dracula is this sort of nebulous presence. You don't quite know where he is, what he's planning, what he's doing. He can appear suddenly enacting a plan. He can sort of hide in the darkness. So up to 4 players take on the role of characters from Dracula, such as Mina Harker, Van Helsing?
Yeah.
Yes, Van Helsing. Because he's been done to death since, it makes me doubt his credibility. Yes, so they play the characters, and what they do is they spread out across Europe, and they are desperately looking for Dracula, who is played by one of the other players. And when we've only played one game, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I wanted to sort of bang on about it. Dracula decides where he starts in Europe, and it's his job to travel around Europe, causing chaos, scoring points as he goes for doing things like murdering the players or injuring them. They can't be killed. There's no player elimination. Or by seeding vampires in different cities and then letting them grow to maturity and then escaping and running off.
So I'm assuming this is like not hidden role, but hidden
it's
actions.
Hidden movement. So Dracula can see where the heroes are, but the heroes don't know where Dracula is. Everyone will move each turn. And Dracula has to reveal if one of the places that the heroes go to is somewhere where Dracula has been. And I think there's 6 or 7 slots where each turn basically he puts down a card saying where he is. At the next turn, all the cards shuffle down. He plays another card. He can't just travel randomly. He has to travel along dirt roads. He can't travel by rail. He doesn't like it. He can travel by boat, but it upsets him and it causes damage. And the characters will know when he's at sea because the cards are slightly different that he puts down. He could travel to Castle Dracula, but they will immediately know that he's there because the card has a completely different back. But it can heal him up, and he gets extra abilities when he's there.
Right.
And it was very fun. The game definitely had different stages, which is another thing I like in a game. We talked about Netrunner, where you start and the runner is very powerful. Then the corporation builds up, and the corporation is in charge, and the runner's kind of reacting to or building up to deal with what the corporation's put in place, and then the runner clicks, becomes all powerful and can do what they like. Fury of Dracula had that. To start with, I was running around Europe, I was running around England and Scotland and Wales with aplomb, doing whatever I wished. And the players were running around in France and Spain. At one point they became convinced that I was in Italy. Don't know why. And decided to have a look there. Once I went to sea, there was a sudden rush by them to ports because as I said, if Dracula spends too long at sea, he gets hurt. And suddenly the net was sort of narrowed, because Dracula can't double back on himself. He can't just run between London and Manchester and then back to London, because the card has already been played. You can't go back somewhere until the card comes back into your hand.
Oh, neat. Okay.
I say your hand. The hand is like 80 cards. There's loads of places.
Yeah, into your deck in a way.
Yeah, so Dracula is always on the move, and he's always going somewhere with purpose. He can't just circle or oscillate back and forth. So they began to sort of narrow down, and some of the character abilities were very, very interesting. Like Mina Harker, she has a connection with Dracula because he quite likes her and he's given her a bit of a bite. Which means that she's very weak to his attacks. He only needs to bite her once to sort of finish her off and injure her. Mm-hmm. But she also has a link the other way, and so she can hold a seance with one of the other characters and say, are you in this region? And you've got sort of like France, Spain, Germany, Eastern Europe, Britain, all sorts of regions. Yeah. So there was definitely a feel that the net was closing. Mm-hmm. As Dracula, I felt very, very powerful to start with, very smug and very full of myself. And then one of my vampires was scored, and it was revealed where the vampire was. They went, there's been a vampire in Manchester. Mm-hmm. And then I went to see, and they were like, well, he's obviously been in Britain, so he can only be in these places. And suddenly I was going, shit, they kind of know where I am. Mm-hmm. And then we ended up with a chase where I was being chased across Germany. And they were sort of a couple stages behind me.
I guess it would naturally lend itself to like a chase.
Yes.
Eventually,
And then eventually they backed me into a corner in Castle Dracula, because I ran from London to Castle Dracula, enacting the book in reverse. And they very much closed in on me. And I was sort of having to pick where I was going to have my fights, laying traps for them, because they can investigate the cities that you've been in to see what you've left. They can... there's a day cycle and a night cycle. Dracula's more powerful at night, obviously. And there's all sorts of things that are just very, very clever and very, very thematic. And it was one of those games that it took a good couple hours to play. We did watch a really, really useful video from Shut Up and Sit Down, where Quinn's explains how to play. It's a very good starter, but there were still lots of little bits we needed to look up and check as we went along. But once we got the hang of it, it was actually quite smooth, and we immediately wanted someone else to be Dracula and to play again. Excellent. So thank you very much for listening. If you've enjoyed that, please leave a like. We'd love it even more if you left a comment and told us what you've been playing or what games you're looking forward to in the coming months. And we'll be back soon, hopefully with some Malifaux coverage next week, followed by... Oh, God, we've got so much to do, Jamie.
We do. We have the Netrunner.
We've got Netrunner. We're going to need to fill you in and get that interview again. We've got Malifaux. We want to talk about Ripples of Fate, the latest supplement. And we want to talk to you all about what we found at Dragonmeet as well.
Yeah. We might have to do, like a series of podcasts in a short period.
Yes, so December looks quite busy.
Yes.
So if you really, really like that and you've not listened before, please feel free to subscribe so that you'll be told when more stuff comes out. So thank you very much for listening. I've been Brian Ennis.
And I've been Jamie Myland.
Everyone else has been missing, but they will return soon as my puppet minions raised from the undead. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
And welcome to the 53rd episode of the Critical Twits Gaming Podcast. We are officially over a year old. Hooray! Jamie doesn't care.
Sorry. I was about to cough with the rum and I muted myself.
Oh, you've gone silent.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, cool. What a slick introduction. I really want to keep that now.